The Philippines is ranked as 8th among 135 countries that practice gender equality according to the Global Gender Gap Report of 2012. This report emphasizes persisting gender gap divides across and within the regions of countries around the world. In October 2010, a total of 14.2 million women were employed, which accounts for 49.7% compared to the 22.3 million employed men, or 78.9%. Out of the 14 million, around 7.5 million women are wage and salary employees, meaning they work for private and government sectors. Despite the country's high ranking and the number of women employed, it doesn't mean that all of them are treated equally. There are still some areas where the country can improve on, such as the conditions and benefits of women in the workforce. What benefits are women entitled to? What should women look for in their contracts? What should employers provide to their female employees? Good evening, I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno, and you are watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you.
And I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno. Tonight, in continuation of celebrating Women's Month, we'll be discussing on the issue of work benefits for women. What you need to know as a female employee and what you need to do as an employer of female employees. We'll be discussing this with a legal expert who has first-hand knowledge on this topic.
Tonight we are joined by Attorney Ruth Balita, Executive Legal Analyst for the Sebastian Office of Legal Aid. Thank you for being here this evening, Ruth.
It's so nice to be with here.
Yeah, thank you. So let's start first with, of course, women employees. What is something that they should look for when they're being hired as employees?
Well, of course, for the women, we have certain provisions under the labor code. It's about the prohibition against gender discrimination. And then we also have facilities that must be provided by the employers for the women workers. And then we also have a prohibition under the labor code about stipulation against marriages. And then we have also allied laws like Solo Parents Act, and then Magna Carta for women. And then we also have the maternity leave benefits under the SSS law.
I'd like to go back to what you said about stipulation against marriage. Do you still find, when you're working in your Office of the Legal Aid, you still find this to be a common occurrence that there are still some employment contracts which say that you cannot get married or else you'd be deemed as resigned?
Yeah, but the experience, with my experience, there are no such prohibition where I am working. But actually, this prohibition against marriages, there is an exemption here. For example, if you intend to marry somebody from a competitive company, well, that prohibition would be a valid prohibition.
All right. Now let's go back to the discrimination. We actually discussed this last week. Just to summarize it, what forms of discrimination are we talking about? Is it just, it's not just the salary, no? Not just the lower salary or the promotion or training. What other forms of discrimination are there?
Well, under the labor code, it's very specific because payment of salaries less than that given to
a male employer. Male employee.
Yeah. And then, of course, other remunerations, bonus, like that. And another example of discrimination is that when it comes to scholarships, trainings, promotion.
Yeah. Basically, if you promote a male ahead of female just because of the gender, then we have a problem there.
Another thing I'd like to talk about would be the facilities that are required to be provided to women, because obviously women usually have the they have special needs, especially if you're a pregnant employee. So can you at least help us enumerate for our viewers yung mga special requirements that employers must give to women.
Yeah. Yes, you are correct, Karen. With regard to women workers, they are considered special workers because of their physical capabilities.
Yeah.
So with
The
this,
ability to be moms.
yeah.
Which we obviously are not very good at. So,
So our laws provide that they must be given adequate facilities like the lavatories, nursery,
By lavatories, you mean dapat separate
Separate.
from men. And then-
separate toilets.
but that's
for
kind of
women.
that's kind of standard, though. Are there
No,
are there employment,
some
no?
offices I've seen,
Oh,
they
like
usually,
it's,
makikita mo yung sign,
That's male,
men
female.
/ women.
Okay. Right.
So it's actually
Yes.
required pala
Yeah.
by law na kailangan hiwalay ang men and women.
And then, if the nature of the work would require the employee to stand up for a long period of time, they
like
must be
sales
given
ladies,
seats.
no? Oo.
What
They have to have
specifically? They have to have specific chairs, or is there a special chair for women, or I mean, is there or just provide them with
Kailangan
chairs?
yung lazy boy, no?
No, just any
Proper seat.
Yeah.
You know, I think,
proper
Rod,
seat, yeah.
I was reading about this law. It was inspired by studies that showed that prolonged standing actually causes health risks to
Yeah,
women,
that's what I heard.
especially
For-
those who are pregnant
Or planning to have a baby, or-
planning to have a baby.
Yeah.
That's why,
Yeah.
and especially I think they were taking into account maraming sales ladies na have to stand for a
Yeah.
long time.
And then the varicose veins.
Yeah,
Yeah.
varicose
Yeah, there you
veins
go.
especially. So mga women out there, if you're sales ladies, take note, your employer should provide you with proper seats.
And the reason I ask is that obviously there's several types of chairs, like the stool chair, yung bar stools, and everything. Everything. I think it based on ano yung nature of the work niya. You have to provide some kind of comfortable chair, right? A comfortable chair. Now there are other facilities required, no? Like I think they need to have nursery. I'd like to talk about nursery.
Yeah, nursery,
thing.
that's-
Are there any specifics with regard to providing a nursery in the workplace? I mean, what should be there? What at the minimum?
Well, there must be a facility that would encourage women to, for example, they don't really have their nannies with them.
Yeah.
Where they
So
can
they-
take care of,
yeah.
parang
They can
daycare
allow
type
them-
ba?
Yeah.
And allow them to
Sort of
breastfeed
What about
privately. You know?
also breastfeeding?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kasi I had an office mate before and she'd always put up a sign on her door that said, may cute na cow na drawing. Tapos nakalagay, please, milking going on. That's when she gave birth and
Clever.
she was still,
And some
nursing.
women are really, they are very uncomfortable breastfeeding in public.
Yeah,
Yes, of course.
I would be too.
Okay. Now let's answer a few questions from our viewers with the help of our guest attorney, Ruth. Our first question comes from Leah and she asks us, I'm a project-based employee and my contract states that I will be working for my employers for 1 year, but I have been working for them for 6 years. Am I entitled to certain or all work benefits, even if I am not a regular employee? The only benefit I have with them is the 12 days vacation leave and nothing else.
That's a long project.
It sounds like Leah is no longer a project employee. Leah,
It's a
I
long
think
project.
your employer is violating the labor code. By 6 years, diba? Attorney Ruth, what can you say about this?
Well, for project employees, the test laid down by jurisprudence is that project employees to become regular employees, first, the continuous hiring of the employee, even though the project has already been completed, and then second is that the task performed by the employee is vital, necessary, and indispensable in the business of the
business.
Okay,
Ah,
so
okay.
Leah, you
So-
have to check. Are your functions related to something that is vital or necessary to the business of your employer? And tapos na ba talaga yung project? Or has this been extended for a long time to justify why you're still a project employee? Because more likely you're already a regular employee.
Right.
But even then, as a project employee, she's still entitled to the benefits of a regular employee, right?
Yes, because the labor code provides that the provisions on working conditions and rest periods also apply
Also
to
apply.
all employees in any establishments and undertakings, whether for profit or not.
So
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, there are certain exempt exempted group of workers, but project employees, unless they qualify to the exempted group.
Now, it's necessary for the employer to mention to the project employee that it is for a project, right?
Yeah.
That's required. If he didn't mention it,
Well,
then
if the period of employment would be for a certain period, like for example, for 1 year or more,
in this
then it's
case,
considered-
they mentioned the contract was 1 year,
Right.
and she's been employed for 6 years. But then, Leah, make sure you have all the other benefits, because even as a project employee, you're entitled to all the benefits of a regular employee.
Right.
Kasama na dyan maternity
clarify your
benefits.
contract.
Yeah.
So our next question is from Lovely, and she asks, I work for a call center agency and my shift starts at 9 p.m. Aside from health benefits and leaves, are there any other benefits I'm entitled to since I work at night? And I guess that's a common question now. A lot of people are in the BPO industry. So
yeah. Aside from the health benefits and leave benefits, you are also entitled to the night shift differential pay, even though your shift is actually part of the night shift is already part of the work, but still the employer must pay the employee of the 10%.
additional 10%.
10% of the hourly
Rate,
right?
yeah,
It's an additional 10% of the hourly wage.
Yeah.
And that night shift starts at?
Well, it depends on the type of whether it's industrial, commercial, non-industrial, or agricultural.
Yeah, but I think it starts normally 10 p.m.
10 p.m. for
to
industrial.
6 a.m.
I think for industrial it starts
right?
at 10 p.m.,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, all right, for commercial, all right.
And our next question comes from Katrina, and she asks, I am 6 months pregnant to my first baby and would like to file for maternity leave soon. How many days of leave and the amount of my salary am I entitled to? So this is the maternity leave. From what I know, you're supposed to start filing or applying for it 2 weeks before you're entitled to it 2 weeks before you give birth, right?
Yeah.
And then, Attorney Ruth, there's a difference if you have cesarean delivery and normal delivery.
Yes, there is a difference. When it comes to normal delivery, the employee is entitled to a 60
days.
Yeah.
Right.
And the rate is 100% of your
Salary. Yeah.
salary, right? So for all that 60 days, kailangan bayaran siya ng
Employee.
rate niya. Yeah.
And after
then,
that?
pag cesarean, how many days?
It's 78.
78.
Yeah.
So it's 2 weeks before, and then after you give birth, it's 4 weeks, right? 4 weeks. You're given 4 weeks maternity.
Yeah. But if it's cesarean, 78 days. So it's more
Alright.
than 4 weeks. Okay.
Alright.
Let's take a short break. Legal Help Desk will return after these reminders.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask.
You're still watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News channel. We are still joined by our guest, Attorney Ruth Balita of the Recoletos Law Center.
Right.
So,
Okay, now
yeah,
go ahead. Okay.
I was just curious kasi about, I was gonna ask in this portion, did you see the statistics earlier, Rod?
Yes.
It seems like pag women, less than 50% yung nagtatrabaho,
Yeah.
but for men, almost 80%.
Yeah.
So my question is it really more expensive to employ women? I mean, because of all the added benefits that you're supposed to give them. Kasi pag cesarean, 78 days,
exactly.
you're paying them even if they're not working for you.
Or is the stat really a function of the traditional, the old traditional view that the men work and the women work? Is it that, or is it really more expensive to?
I don't think the problem is with the women demand more of the benefits or salaries than compared with men. It's just that traditionally women opt to stay home in order to raise their kids, attend to their needs, attend to the needs of the family.
Okay. So it's not a sign. I mean, that stat is not really a sign that there's sort of like a discrimination on the part of the employers, diba? So to speak. Yeah. Because personally, I think I have more women
In your
in my office. Yeah.
in your office.
They work harder.
Yes,
They really do.
hard workers talaga mga
They
babae.
are more critical.
Not to downplay my guys. They're
I
pretty
thought you
good
were
too.
just
but-
trying to please me and Attorney Rutha. Let's answer a few more questions from our viewers. Our next question comes from Agnes, and she asks, as a single mom, I have to juggle between my work and my son. My son has special needs, and though he has a nanny, there are times when I have to be absent from work to take care of him. Are 7 days of leave per year the only allowed days for single-parent employees? Can it be extended? So it is solo
Yeah.
parent.
Solo
you
parents.
know?
There are other leave benefits that you could avail
Avail,
as a solo parent. You have the vacation leave if your employer is giving that type of leave benefits to his employees. Another is that he may also avail of wag naman sanang sick leave, di ba? Kasi it's too hard to become a mother and at the same time you are sick.
No, but can you use your sick leaves for personal reasons? Is that a violation basically of company policies? Kasi may mga kilala ko personally na sa office, they would use their sick leaves to go on vacation. Oo, pag naubos na nila vacation leave
minsan
nila.
may fake ano pa.
Well, ano
fake
naman yan?
medical certificate.
It depends dun sa employer kasi the employer could always impose please present your medical certificate.
Alright.
To prevent being
prevent,
abused then, no?
Alright. Now, Mary Joy asks us, I recently found out that I have cysts on my ovaries and would like to file for a leave to have them removed. Is it enough that I file for a medical leave, or is there another type of leave that I should know about? Yeah. So it's ovarian cysts.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we have certain special leave benefits for women having gynecological disorder, and which would require her to undergo surgical procedure. So for that, the Magna Carta for Women provides that she is entitled to avail of the special leave benefits of 2 months.
2 months with
months?
pay. That's
Yeah,
huge.
2 months
no?
with
Wow,
pay.
with pay.
Yeah.
That's full pay.
And I'd like to
That's-
ask in relation to that, since we're
Yeah.
talking about gynecological disorders, this new, I wouldn't say in a fad, pero trend na more and more women are getting what you call
Reconstruction.
vaginal reconstruction.
Yeah. Aesthetic. It's more
Oo.
more aesthetic.
Yeah, is that aesthetic, or
Yeah.
can you argue that's a gynecological disorder in order to get this 2 months leave that you're entitled to under the Magna Carta for women?
Well, I haven't.
You haven't
Oh,
encountered
wala
anything
pang
like that.
test case,
Yeah.
right?
The reason
This
that's
might be.
interesting is because it can be construed. I mean, so an employee can say, I can do this and take a 2-month leave. Because 2-month leave, a 2-month paid leave is a
lot,
pretty good benefit, you
Oo.
know.
So what do
that's,
you think? Wala pang test case.
Wala,
no?
yeah,
But
wala
what
pang
do
test
you think,
case, no?
Attorney
This
Ruth?
this might be a case of first impression, but I am of the opinion that
probably doesn't.
disorder is different from enhancement.
Yeah. Unless disorder is.
But then
viewed
they were
something else.
thinking, is it an enhancement kung after childbirth, it might be
it's
disorder.
disordered.
But yeah,
It has
it's
disordered.
interesting, no? How we'll see kung paano i-decide yan ng court. Our next question comes from Donna, and she asks, my sister is a victim of abuse. We found out that her husband has been abusing her since they got married. I want to help her file for a restraining order against him. Can she be excused from work while she does this? I think good news for Donna is that there's a new leave now under the VAUSI,
VAUSI,
no?
yeah.
Where you can take a leave if you're filing a case
Yes.
against the VAUSI, which is something that would fall under the VAUSI if you're being battered by your husband.
Yeah.
Siguro, Attorney Ruth, you can help us expound on how many days this is. And
Yeah, for those victims of violence, abuse, women may apply for the leave benefits under the Anti-Violence Against Women and Children Act. But first, for example, the employee is employed in the private sector, he must have a certification coming from the barangay, kagawad, prosecutor's office, or the clerk of court.
Showing that she's filing a case.
Yes.
In other words, you can't just claim, you can't just go to your employer, I'm filing
And how long is this
case?
leave naman?
For 10 days.
10 days with pay
With
again.
pay, yes.
Does that have to be continuous 10 days or can it be like
Well,
split up?
the protection order will state the necessity of how long or how it could be staggered for as long as the employee is using such leave for his for her medical or legal concerns.
All right. Now, our next question comes from Janice, and she asks, I suffered a miscarriage last month and filed for a maternity leave, which was approved by the SSS. However, they will not process the reimbursement unless the company I work for pays me in advance. But they don't want to, the employer doesn't want to. Can I demand them to pay me for my maternity leave benefit? Can I file a complaint against them, especially since they are not following the policy of SSS? And where can I file it? Now, as far as I know, in cases like this in maternity leave, the employer has to advance, right?
Yes.
Advance the salary that she should have gotten during the maternity leave. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
First, the employee concerned, if the employer does not give her the pay,
her pay during her leave.
The employee concerned may file a complaint to the SSS because the SSS has jurisdiction over the filing of complaints, settlement of the claims, and determination of the claims with regard to the deprivation of the pay.
But what if ayaw ibigay yung leave?
Yeah, let's say.
So this is like, no, you can't be absent.
So after filing the complaint, the enforcement, of course, would naturally be with the courts. But first, we have to exhaust
All
administrative remedies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you go to the NLRC for that? If you filed for leave and then, for instance, maternity leave, you're entitled to it because you're expecting to deliver in 2 weeks. But then when you tell your employer, they're saying, no, this is really we have an important project upcoming, you can't. Do you go to the Department of Labor, NLRC, for instance?
Can you seek recourse in the
Well, if it's about the SSS, the jurisdiction is determined by law, and the SSS law provides that jurisdiction
is with them.
It's with the SSS when it comes to maternity benefits.
But
and this is not monetary.
Yeah, but we want to clarify it that the SSS doesn't really have any legal teeth in
coercive
action.
Because I can't
that you can have
imagine
against
they
the employer.
can't issue and they can't even say they're in contempt of an administrative agency if they don't follow. They say you can't go and
they're
leave,
not even
no?
quasi. I don't think they're even quasi judicial. So
But
if
I
ever
guess
they're just going to try to fix it.
Yeah, but I guess the tip for the viewers would be, if you're really gonna give birth in 2 weeks, and it's in your doctor said, di ba pag cesarean, nakaschedule yan, then you can just be absent and then expect to be paid on those days and then go to the SSS and then file for your claim for those 2 weeks na hindi ka binayaran, no?
Correct.
Now, just to clarify though, if you're able to claim your maternity benefit leave, so your whole salary is buo, di ba? You can't file a sick leave, right? I mean, a sick benefit. You can't apply for a sick benefit, right? So hindi
sila pwedeng sabay.
Hindi pwedeng sabay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, our last question comes from Benjamin, and he asks, as an employer, I try to give my employees the benefits that are entitled to them. However, I know that some of them are abusing those benefits to their advantage. Just recently, one female employee filed for sick leave of 5 days. I later learned that this employee went on a vacation to Bohol with her boyfriend. What can I do as an employer to cases like these, especially when I do not want my actions to look like I am limiting their rights as my employees? Ito na yung pinag-uusapan natin na pag ina-abuse naman yung rights to go on leave, right? So what can this employer do to this employee, for instance?
Well, for instance, if the employee applied for sick leave, the employer may ask the employee to present a medical certificate upon reporting for work.
In this case, nalaman niya na na nag-book.
So
what can you
recommend
recommend to employers like this na pag nabubuking nila yung mga employees nila na hindi pala sick leave, nagbakasyon lang pala, I think they can subject them to disciplinary action.
Unless there is a clear policy and the employer informed them about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's lying.
There was lying. Yeah, it was lying.
Sure, I mean, even if you don't have in your company rules na no lying. I mean, if you say sick leave, then it should be for that purpose. So
it's a trust. This one is a trust issue.
Yeah.
In this case, the employee really, I think his question is, how can I do it in such a way it doesn't limit their rights?
Yeah.
In this case, there was an abuse of rights.
So what can he do? Can he say then that you won't be paid for those days that you were gone? In this case, 5 days. Can
the employer legally do that?
He should have, the employer must have a clear policy on the use of sick leave. Before he imposes a
okay. So if it's not clear,
sanctions.
You mean
they cannot impose or they cannot sanction the employee for taking a vacation because
on sick leave?
Because in the first place he did not inform the employees that hey, you will be facing sanctions in the event that you are not taking sick leave.
So okay.
It would have been different if the employee was applying for a vacation leave. It would be too intrusive to the employee if the employer would give him sanctions in case he would be using it to his own personal affairs.
But I guess kung meron naman
kung sick leave,
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, we are running out of time too, but I have so many more questions.
Ako rin lalo na yung on the part of employers because it is unfair for them, no?
I know. I'd like to, but of course, we'd like to thank our guest, Attorney Ruth Abalita, for being with us today in discussing your legal rights and the issue of work benefits for women as we conclude our celebration of Women's Month. I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno.
And I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. Tax season is nearing, which means it is that time of year where all of us are required to file for our income tax. Join us again next Monday as we talk more about it here on Legal Help Desk. Good night. Parang Christmas, no? The Philippines is ranked as 8th among 135 countries that practice gender equality according to the Global Gender Gap Report of 2012. This report emphasizes persisting gender gap divides across and within the regions of countries around the world. In October 2010, a total of 14.2 million women were employed, which accounts for 49.7% compared to the 22.3 million employed men, or 78.9%. Out of the 14 million, around 7.5 million women are wage and salary employees, meaning they work for private and government sectors. Despite the country's high ranking and the number of women employed, it doesn't mean that all of them are treated equally. There are still some areas where the country can improve on, such as the conditions and benefits of women in the workforce. What benefits are women entitled to? What should women look for in their contracts? What should employers provide to their female employees? Good evening, I'm attorney Karen Jimeno and you are watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you.
And I'm attorney Rod Nepomuceno. Tonight, in continuation of celebrating Women's Month, we'll be discussing on the issue of work benefits for women.
Also allied laws like Solo Parents Act, and then Magna Carta for women. And then we also have the maternity leave benefits under the SSS law.
I'd like to go back to what you said about stipulation against marriage. Do you still find, when you're working in your Office of the Legal Aid, you still find this to be a common occurrence that there are still some employment contracts which say that you cannot get married or else you'd be deemed as resigned?
Yeah, but the experience, with my experience, there are no such prohibition where I am working. But actually, this prohibition against marriages, there is an exemption here. For example, if you intend to marry somebody from a competitive company, well, that prohibition would be a valid prohibition.
All right. Now let's go back to the discrimination. We actually discussed this last week. Just to summarize it, what you need to know as a female employee and what you need to do as an employer of female employees. We'll be discussing this with a legal expert who has first-hand knowledge on this topic.
Tonight we are joined by attorney Ruth Balita, Executive Legal Analyst for the Sebastian Office of Legal Aid. Thank you for being here this evening, Ruth.
It's so nice to be with here.
Yeah, thank you. So let's start first with, of course, women employees. What is something that they should look for when they're being hired as employees?
Well, of course, for the women, we have certain provisions under the Labor Code. It's about the prohibition against gender discrimination. And then we also have facilities that must be provided by the employers for the women workers. And then we also have a prohibition under the Labor Code about stipulation against marriages. And then we have...
What forms of discrimination are we talking about? Is it just, it's not just the salary, no? Not just the lower salary or the promotion or training. What other forms of discrimination are there?
Well, under the labor Code, it's very specific because payment of salaries less than that given to
a male employer.
Male
employee.
Yeah. And then, of course, other remunerations, bonus, like that. And another example of discrimination is that when it comes to scholarships, trainings, promotion.
Yeah. Basically, if you promote a male ahead of female just because of the gender, then we have a problem there.
Another thing I'd like to talk about would be the facilities that are required to be provided to women, because obviously women usually have the they have special needs, especially if you're a pregnant employee. So can you at least help us enumerate